Hello there, friends. Well met, merry meetings, and welcome to the space. My name is Serena. I am a professional mermaid, but I love all things magical and fantastical. And if you're here today, hopefully it's because you are a massive Lord of the Rings nerd like I am. We've probably all come to discover the world of the Lord of the Rings in different ways, right? But I do think that there are similarities for the reasons we gravitate towards this world, whether it's because of the incredible world building that has informed so many fantasy authors and fantasy worlds today, whether it's because of the amazing characters, which honestly sometimes feel more familiar than friends. I mean, what I wouldn't give for a Samwise Gamgee in my life. For the magic and escapism it offers, for the tales of love, loss, friendship, tragedy, victory, and just because it serves as a reminder that even in a world that can be overrun by evil and chaos, kind of like our world, there is always hope. What am I doing with my hand? That there is always hope. And even the smallest of people can change the course of the future. With that, today I'm just going to share a little personal story time. It's about how I discovered the world of JRR Tolkien and how it kicked off basically a lifelong love affair with the Lord of the Rings. So grab your favorite flagon, fill it up with your best brew, and let's get talking. Cheers. Okay, so where did it all begin for me? Unlike some of you lucky hardcore people out there, I didn't come to the Lord of the Rings because I read the books before the movies. And in fact, even when the movies did come out, I didn't watch them for like years. I wasn't allowed to watch the Lord of the Rings at the time, but I didn't really know what I was missing either. You know, I wasn't really exposed to worlds of high fantasy, and so life continued and I was largely fine. But then my life took a turn. When years after that, years after the movies that came out, my parents decided to book a trip to Middle-earth. And they decided that to make the most of our trip, it was going to be okay after all to watch The Lord of the Rings. We rented the movies, and I can't remember if it was DVDs or maybe even VCDs, but we watched them together as a family in a little rented house. And the beautiful thing about the 2000s was that Google wasn't really a thing. And we didn't really know that there was a sequence that we had to watch The Lord of the Rings with, so we kind of just winged it. We watched The Fellowship of the Ring first, and then we were like, okay, what rhymes with ring? King! Return of the King! So then we watched Return of the King, and only after that did we watch The Two Towers, which, by the way, to this date remains my favorite Lord of the Rings movie. Elves and Battle of Helm's Deep. I mean, what more could you possibly want? So suffice to say that the trajectory of the plotline was rather confusing for us. Didn't really understand what was going on, but what did also happen was that I fell head over heels in love with the world of Tolkien, with the characters of Middle-earth, with the Lord of the Rings. In retrospect, I am kind of sad I didn't know more about LOTR before we went to Middle-earth. I mean, New Zealand, damn it. Because we actually went on a horse trail ride, and we got to ride along the Ford of Bruineen, which is where Arwen and Domiel, in the movies anyway, rescued Frodo at the epic Nazgul chase, eventually ended up saving him with that awesome elven spell, Ni no Hithaiglir. Rimonin Bruinin Danin Ulayr. So love affair kicked off, went back home, went back to reality, and at that time I was still very young, like about 14, and it was really hard to find people who were interested in the Lord of the Rings. And being into fantasy just wasn't really a cool thing, which I have resigned myself to. I've always been a bit of a weirdo. I'm guessing you guys are too, which is why you're here. It's all good. We found each other now. I was so lucky because I stumbled on this site called arwenundomiel.com. It was basically a Lord of the Rings fan site, so it had different pages like a gallery of funny pictures, which were basically memes before we knew to call them memes. There was an Elvish lexicon, but most importantly, on the main page was a tag board where people could chat. And if you are a baby and you don't know what a tag board is, think of it as basically one big WhatsApp group chat. Only anyone can join. All you have to do is key in a username. Any username you like, doesn't matter. This is the internet, there's no accountability. And you can just start talking to people. The interesting thing about this tag board was that we didn't use it to talk. Not like regular talk, like, hey, how are you? How was your day? No, instead, we used it as a role-playing arena. So these people would come out with full-fledged characters, with backstories, with names of their own. They would key in those names into the tag board, and they would start role-playing with each other, basically taking it in turns to write and build what was essentially a collaborative storytelling experience centered around the Lord of the Rings universe. And I was hooked. Wouldn't you be? You get to dive into your favorite universe. Yes, I'm not leaving. There were people from the US, Europe, Australia, some other parts of Asia. Some of us even ended up exchanging photos and emails, which in retrospect is a terrible idea. I would not want my 14-year-old daughter to be doing that. From time to time, I still wonder how those people are doing. How are they in life? What are they working as? Do they still love the Lord of the Rings? Who knows? Maybe one of you watching this video was from Arwen and Damiel. So, real life Finding Lord of the Rings fans was a bit of a bust, but I did luck out and I found like 2 or 3 other classmates who loved LOTR. And what we did was we wrote a fanfic together. So it was super basic. We just had our little brown school exercise book and we would pass the book back and forth between ourselves and take turns writing a story. Each of us had a character. My friend's character was called Anduin, another's was Nerwin, another was Tari. My character was my role-playing character, whose name was Tanakil Saragond. Tanakil is a name from another fantasy series, and Saragond is Elvish, means bloodstone. No, very edgy. Love being 14. Now, have any of you ever wanted to find out your Elvish name? Well, good news, you can. It was around this time where I discovered that there was an Elvish name generator, and in fact it's still up today. So whoever has been paying for the domain name and the hosting all these years, thank you. The Middle-earth community owes you such a debt. All you have to do is go to chrisweatherall.com/elf. That will lead you where you need to be. I was very excited as I found out that my Elvish name was Luthien Inglorian. If you read the Silmarillion, you know that Luthien is the name of one of the most famous elves there was. She was the ancestor of Arwen and Damiel. Arwen was called the Even Star, Luthien was called the Morning Star. Their love stories run on very close parallels. It's a tragic tale of how an elf, immortal, lovely, beautiful, falls in love with a mortal, and how through all odds they managed to make that love work. I actually would really love to do a story on Luthien Tinuviel, so if you guys are interested in a video on that, type down below, let me know. I would love to do that. Now, a lot of you probably own a lot of LOTR merchandise. I don't. I wish that I did. But one of my prized acquisitions was the Even Star, which is the necklace that Arwen gives Aragorn, and then Aragorn gives it to her back, and then she's like, no, it's like really rude to like give gifts back. There was a shop in the mall that sold a lot of movie memorabilia, so like Legolas posters and like Marvel and DC mugs, and chief among all these things was a real sterling silver Even Star pendant. I wanted it so badly. It was like $200, which was a lot at the time to someone who's, 15 and on an allowance. But I saved and I saved and I saved, and finally the day came where I paid my $200 and I took that Even Star home. I wore it even though white gold doesn't suit me. I wore it even when it tarnished. I just loved that thing. And that was a nice parallel when I met my boyfriend, who I guess is now my husband. And we always used to go on dates to this Chinese restaurant. On one of these dates, the soup arrived And then he was looking at me kind of weird. I lifted the lid of the soup bowl, and lo and behold, there was no soup, but there was a gleaming even star pendant inside. And to date, that remains one of my favorite surprises of all time. I don't have the even star with me today, unfortunately. What I do have is my beautiful Star of Arendelle necklace from Pendant Creations. So I'm just going to pop this on. More is more is more. So pretty. Another interesting development in my LOTR story was that I started teaching myself Elvish. So this started when I discovered the Elvish lexicon page of Arwen and Damiel. And then from there, I branched out to other Tolkien sites, and I learned how to speak very, very basic Sindarin. So for example, Megavanin means well met, Hanonle means thank you, Melanin means friend, of course. That's why Gandalf at the Gate of Moria says Melan, speak friend and enter. I would love to find other Elvish speakers. I think it's really hard to learn a language when you can't like fully immerse yourself in it and have like conversations with people. So currently my use of Elvish is restricted to just annoying my friends when we rewatch The Lord of the Rings and I recite every Elvish phrase there is. So fast forward to today, and Lord of the Rings is still a massive part of my life. Never underestimate the power of words to move, and the words of Tolkien, the characters he's created, the messages they convey have had a huge and lasting impact on my life. I don't think I will ever stop loving the LOTR. I fully never intend to. Until next time when I have children, I look forward to sitting them down and forcing them to watch all the extended editions with me. So if you're still here, well done. You made it. I would actually love to hear about your experience with The Lord of the Rings. It's just nice to meet kindred spirits, you know? So, I guess that brings us to the end of this particular story time. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. A big cheers to you again. You guys are the best sorts of people there are. Namarie for now, Melanin, and I'll see you in the next one.